Hi, my name is Ashley B. Red. I do horror movie content every single day, and today I'm joined by the amazing director of the independent horror movie Mr.Sandman and founder of Acres Films, Matthew I. Schmidt. Welcome, Matt. Thank you for being here. How are you today?
Oh, I'm good, and thank you for getting the I right. So
Oh,
many
yeah.
people have said Matthew L. Schmidt on the reviews or podcasts. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's clearly an I. I don't know what to tell you, but
I'll be honest, I did notice that, and I did have to Google it just to be sure, because I
okay,
think it's because it's not like in the capital I where it has the two lines. Sometimes it
right.
is quite hard to tell, but I am glad I got that right. Tell me a little bit about you, like what made you start Acres Films? How did you get started? And what made you want to become a filmmaker?
Uh, well, what made me want to become a filmmaker is actually pretty easy. I have had a love affair with films for as long as I can remember. I think the term that's used these days, it's kind of new to me, and cinephile.
Ah, yeah.
I'm just absolutely in love with movies, and I don't hold it to one particular genre.
Mhm.
I really do love um, every genre, and I just when a movie hits me the right way, it just I make sure it goes into my physical media collection so that
Mhm.
it's always mine to watch
Oh, that's
at
nice.
pleasure. But yeah, there's something about, and it started with the movie theater experience. You go in as a child and you're just overwhelmed by this just massive screen and like these just speakers that just like completely engulf you in the
Mm.
experience. And I love that feeling. So it's a nice it's definitely a passion of mine to want to bring those feelings out in others because it's just so magical, movies. I do consider them, and I'm sure some people will argue with me, the highest art form out there. And I'll
Mm.
back that up. I'll tell you why, because
Okay.
I do believe that you have to take almost every art form known to man, not only do each part well, but marry them
Mm.
correctly to make a good film. So you have epic music. If you take like John Williams, Danny Elfman, Alan Silvestri,
Mm.
um, you know, you have visuals, which is cinematography. You have
Mhm.
acting, which is another art form. You have graphic artists that create not only backgrounds, but obviously CGI effects.
Mhm.
And you have to make it all marry perfectly. So I just feel it's the highest art form that we have. As far as Acres Films goes, Acres Films started mainly because, well, for two reasons. One, I started out as a screenwriter and
Mhm.
I was writing screenplays, but the problem with it is I have no name behind me. So I couldn't get them to any, not only could I not get them to any studios, but I couldn't even get them to any agents. Like nobody's going to read an unknown screenwriter. They get
Mm.
flooded with stacks and stacks of screenplays every day. So I tried the traditional route. I tried getting an agent, a manager. I tried submitting to all these places, and it just no responses whatsoever.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, I came across a film that was filmed local to the area that I live in.
Mhm.
Because about 5 minutes into the film, they mentioned the local electricity company that we use. So I was like, "Oh, this guy's local, and he got his film on Amazon Prime."
How did he do that?
Exactly. That was my first question. I'm like,
Yeah.
"How'd you get your film on Amazon Prime?" So I looked him up through Facebook. I reached out to him, and he was, kind enough to pretty much walk me through the process. And I didn't realize at the time that Amazon Prime is pretty much open to independent filmmakers. What I did was I just kept doing films, and so the whole point of Acres Films was not just to fuel my passion for filmmaking, but it was also to build a brand for myself and build a little bit of a name for myself so that maybe if I did something that got a project that got enough recognition, I could turn around and maybe talk to some of these agents and be like, "Hey, okay, by the way, I also write screenplays.
Mhm.
What do you think?" So, um, so it fuels my passion and my writing goals as well.
Is there like a particular movie that got you into horror when you were like growing up that made you want to be like a horror director?
Um, well, the funny thing is I don't know if I want to be exclusively a horror director,
Okay.
but as because if someone said, "Hey, unlimited budget, we'll give you your dream project," I'd be like, "Yep, I just happen to have a Superman screenplay ready to go, ready when you are." So
I would watch that. I would like to see that. That would be interesting. So you were like a big superhero fan then?
I am. I am a
Okay.
big superhero fan. I grew up. I'm going to be showing my age here, but I don't really care. I grew up very much on Christopher Reeve's Superman, and the way that the exhilaration that made me feel, and the fact that that film laid the groundwork for every superhero film to follow,
Mm.
even to this day, is an extremely impressive feat. As far as my first love affair with horror, it was somewhat forced upon me.
Okay.
My parents were out, and my older brother and my older cousin thought it would be hilarious to sit me down and force me to watch the original television 1981 broadcast of
Mm.
Halloween.
Oh my God. That's
And
intense.
and again, I will show my age. I was 6 years old at the time, and they sat me down for
Mm.
every frame. It was almost like a train wreck because it's like it was a disaster, but you couldn't look away, and it
Mm.
just totally engulfed me. So that being the case, I fell in love with horror, uh, not even knowing it at the time because I was terrified.
Yeah,
But that feeling of being terrified, I got so addicted to that
I
I
get
couldn't
that.
help but just latch onto it. So horror became one of my favorite genres.
That's interesting because I remember one of the first films, ironically, that I saw. My sister made me watch it when I was really young, and that was Scream. So it was
Okay.
so crazy to me because I was so scared that I didn't even make it through the whole film. And now it's one of my favorite franchises. So I get what you mean when you say that you can't stop watching because you're like, this is so scary, but I love it. Like, and you keep going back to it. So I get that. So let's talk about Mr. Sandman, your film, which I have watched I don't know how many times now, by the way. Like I really like this film, and I've shown it to quite a lot of people. And everyone I've shown it to has told me that they were honestly really scared of it, like genuinely, because it does give you that sort of feeling of when you were a kid and everything was in the dark and you were trying to get back to bed. And even now, like I'm in my 30s now, and after I watched this film, I went to get a glass of water and I actually stopped myself and I was like, I can't do it. Like I can't leave my bed to get this water in the dark. I just couldn't do it. So that shows how much of an impact it had on me. So
That
did
is a
you
compliment and a half. That makes me so proud to know that
that I was scared. Well done.
that
You did the
affect.
job right.
Yes, I did my job.
You did. So when did you think of the story of this film? Was this like in the works for a long time?
This actually came up. Well, one of the I'll jump back real quick. One of the first lessons I learned in screenwriting was whatever story you're going to make it primal.
Mm.
Make it so that every human can relate to it on some level. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm obviously in the horror genre. What's one of the most primal fears that everyone has? The fear of the dark.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, well, with the fear of the dark being the case, I said, that's great. I said, okay, well, who's most afraid of the dark? Well, that would be children.
Mm.
So now I have one primal chord, the fear of the dark, and I have another primal chord, the chord of childhood fears. And the reason that is it a relatable topic, at least to everyone, is because either a child would be watching this,
Mm.
or who, even if you're an adult, you were a child once.
Mm.
So now thankfully it appears I did my job right, at least with you, to bring you back
Mhm.
to those childhood fears. But I if nothing else, I knew the concept was relatable to everyone.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter your gender, your culture, whatever. You were a child, and fear of the dark is primal, because if you can't see what's there, your mind is going to put something there.
Yeah.
And, to this day, and I'll make you feel a little better, you said you're in your 30s, you had trouble getting the water.
Yeah.
Well, I can't sleep in an open room. Like the door has to be shut
I
where
get
in
that.
any room I'm sleeping, because if not, I will look down that hallway
Mhm.
and I will see stuff to this day. So
Yeah.
I need the door shut. The concept came from the fear of the dark, but I'm like, okay, I don't want to make a movie where it's just the dark. Um, I wanted to put an actual threat in the dark, so it's not just the child's imagination.
Mhm.
So that, and I'm like, okay, what can I put there? What can I put there? I could just put like a random demon or ghost or whatever. And then it just hit me. Oh, I'm like, Mr. Sandman. I'm like,
Mhm.
everybody's heard of it. Everybody knows about it. I'm like, let me just throw that in there. And I had a hard try. When I first started doing this, I had a hard time finding on IMDb anything called Mr. Sandman, as in like Mr. Dot Sandman.
Mm.
I found Mister, and I found tons of film called The Sandman
Mm.
or just Sandman, but I didn't see any too many Mr. Sandman. So I'm like, okay, surprisingly, this hasn't been done to death yet.
Mhm.
So let me jump on this. So those are the origins of the idea.
Your daughter's in this film,
Yes.
and she's amazing, by the way.
Oh,
Was
thank
so
you.
good. Did she do any acting before this?
She did have a small part for me in Happy Birthday Hannah, non-speaking role.
Okay.
But she's been doing like school plays for years and acting classes and what have you.
Mhm.
And if I'm not mistaken, would you like a quick extra
Yeah,
guess?
is she? Yeah, sure. Why not? Bring her in. If she's happy to come in and be on the camera, sure.
Give me 1 minute.
Okay.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Did you enjoy working with your dad? Do you watch like a lot of films? Like, do you let her watch these films? Are you already interested in horror films before
Um,
Lindsay?
yeah, so the first time that I actually watched a horror film is Van Helsing a horror film?
Yeah.
We warmed you up with Van Helsing because it
Yeah.
was like kind of like a horror action.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we
So
warmed her up with that.
so that was the first thing that I ever watched. And then for my birthday, I think I was turning 11 or 10, I
Mhm.
went to the IMAX theaters and watched Halloween real
Oh,
time
wow.
for my
Yeah.
birthday. So that was like my actual first horror film
Mhm.
that I watched. But then one night I was watching like a Disney movie with my mom and my sister, and then my dad calls me in while he's working with his friend, like which is the producer of the movie, Brandon Berkeley. He calls me in. He's like, "Hey, Haley, do you want to be in a movie?" I'm like, "Yeah." So that's how Happy Birthday Hannah started, which was my first film in 2018, and then he did Tales of Found Footage, and then just continued on with it with Mr. Sandman, and I was contributed in it, and I had really fun.
Nice. Oh, you're really good. Did you win an award for this film? I think I saw something on Instagram. There's an award.
Yes, I went
Ooh.
to a festival in Atlantic City. What was it called?
Yeah, it was the local film festival, Atlantic City Film Festival. She
Yeah.
won best child actor.
Best child or actress.
That's amazing. Well done. That's
Thank
really
you.
cool. Well, I actually showed it to my friend who does short horror films, and the first thing he said was like, "That girl's really, really good." And I was like, "That's his daughter. Like his daughter is in the movie." And he's like, "I'll tell her she's really, really good." I was like, "I will. I will." I didn't think I get to talk to you, but I can tell him now that I actually did get to tell you properly. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Were you scared working on the film? Did you get scared at all?
Um.
Not
Well,
really.
yeah.
We were laughing too. It was too much of a
Yeah.
fun set. I mean,
Yeah.
well, when she wasn't tired, at least then it was fun.
Yeah, because like most nights when we had to stay up until like 11 or 12 at latest, because some of them were school nights that I filmed. So, but most of the time it was pretty fun. I liked it.
And it's filmed inside of your house, right?
Yes.
So that's why it made me think, if you now go to bed at night, do you not get scared when it's dark thinking of these scenes
Um,
that you had to film?
no, not really, because now everything's different. Like we redid the room that the movie was mainly shot in. Like the walls are white. There's a one single bed. Everything's gone. And I moved into the guest bedroom right next to that, but like I don't really like get those like memories of everything, but I do have the memories of being there on the set having, well, not the set, like my room, my old room, but having like a good time. So
Oh, good, good. And the poster is very cool. How did you do the poster? Because Hailey, you're in the poster, right?
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that
this
another traumatic?
This is a traumatic incident for her.
All right. So
You want to tell it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can tell.
Okay.
You can tell.
so we were so like I think the movie was like finished filming, like not all the editing was done yet, but my dad we had to get the poster. So my dad takes me and my sister to the beach in November,
Ah.
and he's like, Hailey, go put the gown on. I'm like, why? And then he's like, we're gonna go take your poster photo. I'm like, okay. So because I didn't know that he was taking me to the beach, but I didn't know where I was going. So he tells me to get in the car. It's me and my sister. We get in the car, and like now like we're going over the Ocean City Bridge, and I'm like, where are we going? He's like, the beach. I'm like, okay, so this is where you're taking me. So we get there. I'm in the gown. My toes are freezing, and what he basically do is like I'm laying down, like my legs are spread out, my arms are like this, and they're buried in the sand, and I have to put my neck up against the sand, and like it's freezing.
The sand was ice cold too.
The sand was freezing. The water air going like right against me. It was traumatic, but I eventually got the shot, and he's like, Hailey, stay there. It's okay. I know it's hurt. I'm like, Dad, let me go home. But
Oh, bless you.
so I was there for about a good 15 minutes, 10 minutes trying to take the photo, but we did eventually get it, and with some editing, it did turn out good.
We
And-
booked back to the car. I cranked the heat, and then you
Dad, get me Dairy Queen now.
And then
I
she
got
made
it.
so all's well that ends well.
I was like laying down on the ground, like imagine like me like laying down flat on the bottom sand. He stood above me and took the shot like above me. Like the background isn't fake.
Like it's
just
the actual
title.
beach. It's the actual beach. But then I mean, obviously we put some filters on it to make it look like and stuff. So I mean that was just done with like standard like photo software. Crazy. But yeah, the background was the beach. So for the sand.
Would you like to be in any future films with your dad?
Yup.
Yeah.
Whatever he has in mind, I'll do it. If I have to skip anything, I'll do it.
I knew I could get what I needed out of her for the film. So I knew that she would perform, when she needed to perform. So I was confident putting her in the film without like having to worry about working with a different child actor.
Yeah. I guess when it's your own kid, it's more comfortable as well. You can kind of like, you're already used to giving them direction and to asking them to do things. So.
Exactly.
Well, you did great. So well done. Thank you for coming to
you.
speak to me as well. It's very nice to meet you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you too. Bless her. Well, that was a nice little cameo that we weren't expecting. So that was really nice to speak to her. So something I want to mention, just because I'm a massive geek nerd when it comes to these things, is the sound in your film was so good. Like the sound was great. And the music you chose was really great. I wanted to ask you, was there a reason that you chose those particular songs for the sequences, like Swan Lake, things like that? Was there a reason you chose that, or was that in the plan from the beginning?
It's not that it was in the plan. The one thing that was in the plan from the beginning was I'm a massive Exorcist 3 fan. I feel it is the single most underrated horror movie I've ever come across. It is ridiculously well done, ridiculously scary. Certain parts of it easily rival the original. But there was something that they did in that film which absolutely fascinated me, and I was like, yeah, that would work perfectly for Mr. Sandman. And instead of music, they use sounds to give it an organic evil feel. And I thought that was brilliant. And I thought, well, with the darkness and it being nighttime, I want to set the mood of that quiet. So instead of music over enhancing everything, I wanted to use sounds to create more of like an organic thing. So you don't really know, and you're not intended to know as a viewer, if you're hearing it or if she's hearing it. So it's like I wanted to create that organic nighttime feel. and again add to the childhood fears. So that's where most of the music is actually just sounds combined,
Mm,
sometimes combined sounds, sometimes enhanced or sped up or slowed down.
mm,
But when it came to a few sequences where there was music, um, the opening sequence played Dance Macabre.
yes, that was really good. I like that.
Yep. Obviously, the music box had to play some type of music. I mean, what better than Swan Lake? I mean,
Mm,
it just works.
yeah.
Um, so it's not that those were instantly in my head, but when I started researching like public domain music, those two came up. Dance Macabre is prominently featured in one of my favorite films, Tombstone. So I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." And even though that's a western, not a horror, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is kind of cool. I get to throw a little like, nod to Tombstone in too."
Mm,
And Swan Lake again, it's instantly recognizable. It works so well with the music box.
mm.
Obviously, it's a ballerina music box, so that adds another element to make Swan Lake work. So, the music was yeah, I mean, that's really where I kinda got the idea for the music, and then for, like, certain things like the end credits, I just looked up more public domain music, and I found a composer that I really liked, and he basically says on his page that his work is for, public domain and use it as you wish, just credit him, so
Ah, okay. I have always been traumatized by that Swan Lake music. I don't know why. Like, so as soon as it came up, I was like, oh God. It just makes me really anxious, which is a compliment because I've never thought about using it in like a horror movie, like in that way. So that's why I wanted to bring it up because I really, really liked that. That was one of my favorite things that you did. So I thought that was
well,
really
I
cool.
know Kubrick does a lot of that. He uses a
Hmm.
lot of classical pieces as opposed to
Yeah,
original music to
yeah.
enhance a scene, and I think
Hmm.
he does a great job with that. I definitely wanted to go lean more towards the subtle, slow burn
Hmm.
than the over the top in your face. So I didn't want to overdo the jump scares.
I get that. I actually like if you ask me what I think is the scariest film of all time, I always say Psycho. I think Psycho's terrifying. Like and there's barely anything that's too bloody or too many jump scares and it's just so much suspense. And I think that's so much scarier than just like constant because with jump scares and things like this, like not to ruin it, but if you watch Skinamarink, like there's not too many jump scares, but it's like when they are, you're like, oh my, it's like so that's what reminded me of your film because there's not too many, but it's just they're placed very well, and I think that's scarier than just going all in and just doing loads of them.
So funny that you mentioned Psycho because it's
Mm,
Hitchcock's quote that inspired me a lot on this film, which is it's not the kill or the jump scare, it's the suspense.
yeah,
The kill is just to give the suspense an actual threat, but it's the suspense that scares people.
that's what
So
scared me when I watched
yeah.
this because I watched it on a laptop in my bed with all the lights off, and I just sat there like and I was like, "Actually, this is quite scary." It was really getting to me, and I found myself looking around the room, and it's the whole thing of you think even as a kid, even now, you think you see, like, a jacket on the floor or something like that, and you're staring at it, and in this movie, at every little part that was like that, I just couldn't stop, and then after the film, I was just looking around my room like like, just really, like, in my head. So well done on that. That's exactly what I think you were trying to aim for.
Oh, love it. Thank you.
It was very good. I want to ask you as well, like independent horror is really on the rise right now. So I all you have to do is look at something like say like the Terrifier franchise. So do you feel like it's gonna be on the rise in a good way? Do you feel more positive about the way it's become? Like and as an independent maker?
Absolutely. If there's one thing I've noticed about movies in Hollywood over the years that I've been watching films is, and this can be a good thing or a bad thing sometimes, they love copying each other.
Mhm.
So, for instance, like Halloween comes out, and then they're like, "Oh, that's successful. All right, let's make 20 more series just like that. Let's make this holiday, that holiday, Friday the 13th, whatever. Oh, slashers are big. Let's do that. So I love the fact that Damien Leone, the director of
Yeah.
Terrifier, has broken that barrier between independent horror and full studio, because now they're saying, oh, you're saying an independent horror that costs, and I'll just use Terrifier 3 as the example, that costs $2 million only, and make us $90 million.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's only the last time I even heard the totals. I don't know what they're up to now, but that to me, from a studio's perspective, would be a no-brainer. And I've always heard this about studios. They say no matter what studio it is, no matter how prestigious it is, horror they love. It's always their bread and butter because they're dirt cheap and they always make a profit. Well, this made a ridiculous profit. So I know studios are out there now saying, hey, where's our Terrifier? How can we, make a franchise that can cost only a couple mil and make, because as much as I love superhero films, they cost a fortune to make, you know? So I don't know, what the profit margin is on those. I mean, I know it's enough to keep making them, but $2 million is a drop in the bucket for a major studio. So
Yeah, I remember the reason I brought it up is because I remember watching the first Terrifier film like years ago and just thinking, this is brutal. Like it's so
yeah,
savage. And because I love like Pennywise is my favorite villain. So anything with clowns, I'm like, I'm gonna watch that. So as soon as I saw Art the Clown, I was like, this is great. Really need to watch this film. And I remember watching it and thinking how good it was. And then I fast forward to today and I think I cannot believe how what this has become. Like that's why I look
yeah,
at something like say your
yeah,
movie, you don't know what that could become. So that's why I'm
right.
bringing it up because I think it's proven that there's definitely a place there for it. It's just finding the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's encouraging though. It really is, because I love the fact that independent horror is getting more of a spotlight shined on it, and I'm hoping that I'm in the right place at the right time to
Mhm.
hopefully take advantage of something like that down the road. But to walk into Spirit Halloween and see Art the Clown everywhere, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I witnessed this guy come up from the indie realm, so
Yeah.
I'm not the jealous type. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm jealous in a good way. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I wish that was me, but at
Mm.
the same time, I'm like, hey, great, now start getting people to look our way.
Yeah. That's definitely something to look at in a positive way. Like, because I remember years ago, like, if there was like a small independent film, people would be like, oh, yeah, I'll watch that. But now it's like, oh, where's that streaming? Like, where can I find that? Because there's a lot more options now that people can, like you said, put it on these streaming services like Amazon Prime or Tubi and things like that. So, if you're happy to speak about your other movie, I just wanted to briefly mention it as well. The
Okay,
hashtag the challenge, because also loved that one. Well done.
thank you, thank you.
I thought that was great. Again, I've passed that one on to some friends. One of them has it on their watch list and they promised me that they will watch it this week. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about where that was filmed because it came right out of The Shining. Where was that?
Yes, it did. Yeah, I gotta say, I guess I don't have a poker face. I guess I can't hide my influences very well, but that's okay.
You like
Um,
Kubrick?
I do,
Yeah,
I do love Kubrick. And wow, major shout out to Eyes Wide Shut. Talk about underrated.
love that movie.
Okay, so I have a friend who owns a place called the Irish Pub,
Mhm,
and directly above that is the hotel attached to the pub.
mhm.
So, during the quote unquote off season, which is pretty much anything but summer, the hotel is shut down. Um,
Ah, so you had the whole hotel. I was wondering. I was like, how are these girls running around this entire hotel? That
we
makes sense.
had the run of the place.
Oh, that's
So
great.
she was kind enough to let me film there for I think that one because it was found footage style, which is um technically speaking easier to shoot, only because you can get a lot more footage with just pointing and shooting. You can get a lot more usable footage. as opposed to cinematic, which is Sandman, where you have to like cut, put it, different camera angles, different lighting, everything. That only took 2 months to film. But it was just at the second I saw the place, I exactly what you just said. I was like,
Shining.
this is a smaller version of the Shining Hotel. This is a
Mhm.
smaller version of the Overlook, or in real life, the Stanley Hotel. I was like,
Mhm.
this is it. I'm like, wow. I'm like, there is no way I can't film here. And
Mhm.
all the paintings, all the sculptures, those are all there. That's all in the
Ah,
hotel.
okay.
We basically added nothing.
The
It was
picture of the girl?
I wish I could take credit. You want to talk about such a fortunate accident that
That was
we just
already there?
filmed on. It was already there.
That is so creepy.
And when we got her on set, we were like, it just occurred to us. We're like, oh my God, that looks exactly like her. I said, well, write it in. Let's
Yeah,
go. I
you
said,
can't
we're
not.
using it. So that was an extremely fortunate accident.
It
I
looks
wish I could
exactly
take
like
credit.
her.
I
Oh my
know.
god. That's
I
that's
know.
why I asked, because I thought, oh, maybe you've just edited it in the corner or something to make it look like the actress.
I wish I could
Wow.
take credit. That was real.
That's very cool. And for anyone that hasn't seen it, could you explain a little bit what the story is about?
It was basically the whole concept. It's called Hashtag the Challenge because it was based on internet challenges amongst teenagers were very popular at the time. There was, I'm just thinking, there was one that was really kind of funny, actually. I think it was called the Cinnamon Challenge.
Oh yeah. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where you had to take a spoonful of cinnamon and
Seemed
try to
dangerous.
it. Yep. Well, that was the funny thing. It's like I was like, there are these challenges out there. I'm like, somebody's gonna end up getting hurt with something.
Mm.
But I was like, okay. I'm like, how about a challenge where they have to, go and visit this abandoned hotel that's supposedly haunted, and the whole point of the challenge is you have to make it from the first floor all the way up to the fourth floor, and then all the way back down, and be
Mhm.
okay. And everybody, the whole concept, not that we show this, but the whole concept of the pre-story is that a bunch of kids have tried it, but all chickened out.
Ah, okay.
So these girls actually get in, and
Mm.
hijinks ensue.
The girls did a really good job in that as well. I thought
Oh,
the acting was really good. Like, I think with found footage, it's one of those things because it's sometimes with found footage, I personally feel like sometimes it's more scary because it looks so real. But I think it's either you can film it and some people be like, oh, it's okay, it's a bit more low budget. But I think you can get away with that with found footage because it looks like that anyway. But sometimes the acting can either make it or break it. But I thought they did really good. Like,
yeah.
I like.
No, they did. And the funny thing is the first scene in that movie, and for those who haven't seen it yet, that's not really a spoiler. It's like the two girls in their bedroom hanging out, talking about the challenge they're about to take on, was our first night of filming together with them. That's the first night they met.
Oh,
So
really?
there was just there was just an instant chemistry between the two, and they
Mm.
just hit it off so well, and they were bouncing off each other so well that, again, it's just one of those moments. And I had a similar moment with Mr. Sandman in the beginning, where it's like, if nothing else, certain elements are just going to work, and I knew their chemistry would work from the beginning. And with Mr. Sandman, it was the grandma speech, which was filmed very early on.
Yeah, that was
um
good too.
and when I did that, I was like, and it happens to be also be my favorite scene in the movie. I was like, wow. I was like, okay, I have a good feeling that we're on the right track here.
No, I really enjoyed it, so that's one that I've recommended to people also.
Thank you.
It's okay. Do you have any future plans? Any other further projects that you're working on?
Only concepts at this point.
Okay.
Only concepts. The Mr. Sandman, because it was cinematic and because there was over 250 shots.
That's a
Um,
lot.
yeah, took creatively and energy wise a lot out of me. It
Mhm.
really did drain me a lot. And I'm also kind of waiting to see how far Sandman takes me,
Mhm.
to see if I can either get funding or have a successful Indiegogo campaign or something like that,
Mhm.
to expand one of the two concepts that I have that would require a little more funding and a bigger crew. It's a combination of being mentally exhausted plus kind of just enjoying, like finally releasing and talking about Sandman, and the combination of how far also will it take me so I can maybe make one of these other concepts happen.
Are you happy to share any ideas, or are you going to keep it secret for now?
There's very little to share. I can basically tell you that one would be more of a horror comedy.
Okay.
Leaning more into comedy because it is a bit of a slasher type, and I don't think the traditional I think the traditional slasher would have a really hard time. Oh, sorry, another guy.
It's okay. My cat's just surrounding me right now, so definitely fine.
I think the traditional slasher is it's a hard concept to keep fresh. So to me, I think the best way would make it comedic and have fun with it. So there's that. And the other one, because I'm a massive, massive Exorcist fan and Omen fan and those religious type horrors, there's something about those satanic horrors that just hit different with me. I have a general concept of that type of film, like a religious horror, that I would really like to sit down and expand upon.
Nice. So I'm just gonna end just by playing the fun little game.
Okay.
So it's just a quick fire thing, just called Your Opinion. So
Okay.
I'm just gonna ask what your opinion is on these following things, and just be very honest because it's your opinion. So, in your opinion, who is the best horror director of all time?
That's a tough one because a lot of directors some of the best horror films are from one-off horror directors.
Well, you can go from that too if that's what you
Yeah.
want.
So I'm gonna give it to Craven because he created two long-lasting, very smart and very powerful franchises that were all both spawned off of one movie. I mean, the concept that you are not safe if you fall asleep, that's Rocky, by the way.
Hello. I used to work in a
The other one.
vets. Big
And
fan, so don't worry.
there's the other
How
one.
many do you have?
And this would be Bromley.
Hi. Oh, they're
Bromley's
so cute.
Bromley's the husky and Rocky is some type of hound mix. So we're trying to
Very
figure
welcome here. It's completely okay.
two very successful franchises, two brilliant concepts, because not only did he create something incredible that when you're not safe to fall asleep with Nightmare on Elm Street, but then he went and subverted the slasher genre by making a self-aware franchise with Scream that was a dream for movie fans. The whole time he was just referencing like movies that we all grew up like watching and talking about and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go with Wes Craven.
Okay, good one. And in your opinion, what is the best found footage horror you've ever seen?
I was about to jump on it, but I hesitated for a minute. So I'm gonna go with Paranormal Activity, the original. That is my favorite. And I'll tell you, I'm just honorable mention real quick. I was really impressed with the original Hell House.
Oh, I love Hell House. It's amazing. Yeah, it's really, really good. I think
really
that's got to be
impressed.
one of my favorites as well. Yeah. It's actually quite scary. Like again, that's when I watched with the lights off and I was like, Jesus, what the hell is intense. For me, I'd say Lake Mungo was one of the best ones I've ever seen. That's a great film.
That is great.
I'd probably go Hell House as well. Nice. And this is one of my favorite questions to ask people because it's such a great area and it makes me laugh hearing people's honest answers. So in your opinion, what horror movie do you think is overrated? Or that you don't like?
That I don't like. What horror movie? I actually do think about this a lot, and oh man, I hesitate to say it, but and you're gonna find this funny because I took inspiration from it at the same time, but I Evil Dead 2 is a good movie, but I don't understand the absolute love affair with it.
Okay.
When I found Army of Darkness far, far superior. I love Army of Darkness.
Mhm.
It's my favorite of all Raimi's films.
Okay.
So I guess I don't understand why that doesn't get more love as opposed to Evil Dead 2.
That makes sense. That
I
makes sense.
so if there was one that's kind of that I feel it gets too much love, it might be Evil Dead 2. Not that it's a bad movie,
Thing.
but I don't understand the absolute swell of love for it and
Okay.
how Army of Darkness gets pushed to the side.
That's interesting. I think the first Evil Dead's the best one, but I love Evil Dead too. I have to be honest, I do. But I think Army
Okay.
of Darkness is also great. So I get
Well,
what you mean.
it's not like you're alone. I'm the outlier. Most people
Mm.
love Evil Dead 2. I was just like, I've watched it 3 times. I'm like, I feel like I'm left out, like I'm missing something that everybody
Mm.
else is seeing. And I'm like, I like it. It's okay. But I'm like, Army of Darkness, I loved
Mm.
every frame from beginning to end.
I get that. I can tell you mine if it makes you feel any better. And this is
Please do.
this is a Marmite film that some people think is a masterpiece, but I hated this film, and it
Okay.
was It Follows. I hated it.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
I have not seen it.
Don't watch it. No, I'm just
Some,
kidding.
correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
The concept I heard was it was about an STD basically.
Pretty
And I'm like,
much.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I gotta be honest. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like a very interesting concept to me.
It's the
So,
concept of it does sound kind of silly, but the idea of it is actually quite good. It's just that the music is very good. I can appreciate why some people like it, but I think it was so hyped up, and everyone calls it like a masterpiece. And every time I've seen bits of it, and then I watched it once start to finish, don't get it. Like,
okay.
I don't get it. But that's again my thing.
But
So
that's like the beauty of film is
Mhm.
that like you every it's just like music. Everybody's gonna have their own taste. Everybody's
Mm.
gonna things are gonna land on people. I have a ton of guilty pleasure movies that are considered cheesy or whatever, and and yet, but I absolutely love them for whatever reason. And then there's a ton of movies that I'm with the public on, and the general consensus, and it just,
Mhm.
so it's 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 whatever lands on you a certain way, and so you find something you can relate to in the film.
Well, in the next one, which is very similar, and I think I know what you're gonna say, is the most underrated film.
What I feel is criminally underrated,
Mhm.
and it's a sequel to my favorite film of all time,
Mhm.
Jaws 2.
I've
I-
never seen Jaws 2, I'll be honest. I've never seen it. Never seen it.
What planet have you lived on?
I've never seen it. I can make you feel better. I have
Okay.
a t-shirt on that is basically Jaws, but it's cats and it says pause. Does that make you feel
Okay.
better? Okay, there you go. That's
I've
saved to me.
actually, I've seen that like on posters and memes and stuff. That's funny.
Yeah, haven't seen Jaws 2. Haven't seen it.
Wow. Please do.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it.
Please,
I'll
please
watch
do.
it.
Please
Okay.
do me a favor
Okay, that's all you get from this. Just go and watch Jaws.
and hit me back with your feedback.
Do you know what? I feel like now I'm thinking about it, I feel like I might have seen it, but I just don't remember it at all. I watched it when I was so young. Now I think about it, I feel like maybe I have. I'll add it to my list. I have a list, but I'll add it to the list. Right, the next one. I'm really interested what you're going to say for this one, but this is a really interesting one. In your opinion, what is the best modern horror? So anything past 2010. What would you say?
Hereditary. Hereditary.
I love
Yep.
Hereditary. Have you
Yep.
seen Midsummer?
I did. I did.
Which did you prefer?
Hereditary.
Okay, that's always an
Hereditary.
interesting question because I think they're both phenomenal, but it's
Um,
interesting to see what one people prefer.
Yeah, Hereditary was the first time I had seen an Ari Aster
Mm.
film, and I was like, I instantly picked up on his Kubrick influence. And I was like, okay, I already love this because I love the style he's shooting in. But there was something so awesomely haunting about seeing these old people in shadow so you couldn't fully make them out, and all you really saw was that smile, and I was like, now that is brilliant
Yeah.
horror imagery.
I just love the film. I remember I watched it during lockdown, which is probably not a good idea. I watched Midsummer first. That's why it's interesting. So I
Okay.
watched Midsummer first, and I just thought it was phenomenal. I still think about it to this day. I've never seen it since, but I think it's brilliant. And then I watched Hereditary, and I just remember afterwards just feeling really uneasy. And I was like, that is a proper horror film. Like, that has made me feel so uncomfortable. And the part, like, without spoilers, if you haven't seen it in the car, and the after, like, everything is done so well that it's just so nerve-wracking to watch. And Toni Collette is probably the biggest Oscar snub of all time, in my opinion, in that film.
Yeah. I think Midsummer, the reason it didn't land on me as good is because I'm like, okay, the concept is similar to The Wicker Man. So I felt like
Similar, yeah.
I felt like I had seen it before,
Fair enough.
And it's funny because I get this I get in this kind of debate with my friends who are like, well, what do the Conjuring universe, what this, that. I'm like, honestly, I liked part 2 better than part 1. And they're like, really? They're like, why
Yes.
is that? I'm like, because in The Conjuring, I felt like I had seen everything they showed me before. At least with The Conjuring 2, there were new elements that I hadn't seen before, and I was more it affected me more. I was more of a fan of part 2, and I thought the nun character in that was handled so well, that it just I thought it was brilliant. So, yeah, I really did like part 2 better.
In your opinion, what was the best horror movie score? I think I know what you're gonna say. But you could say it's completely fair if you say what I think you're gonna say.
Hmm. I mean, if you're talking pure iconic, I mean, it's how can you not talk about Jaws?
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't wanna do the simple answer, so I'm gonna go because that's not just horror, that's, like, maybe one of the most iconic scores of all time.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think that and Rocky might be the 2 most iconic, recognizable worldwide scores that ever, occurred. So, I'm gonna try to narrow it down to more specifically just horror. There are 2 that jump out at me right away that I absolutely love, and I'm gonna struggle to break the tie, but I'll try. Poltergeist is one,
Mhm.
and Sleepy Hollow is the other.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good
I
one.
love the
Mm.
music in Sleepy Hollow.
Mhm.
And it's also my favorite Tim Burton film, but,
Okay, it's a good film.
I just, those 2 scores are just they make me feel horror. Um, you know what? But at the same time, now that I'm like, now my brain's going, I guess you gotta go Halloween.
Yeah.
You have to go
Yeah.
the Halloween, don't you? I mean, don't
Yeah.
you? You have to
Yeah.
really go the original Halloween. Is that
That
not the
makes sense.
scariest film of all time?
It's creepy. It's really
You
creepy.
gotta go Halloween. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I'm
everyone
gonna
knows
go
that one. So this is the last one of these questions, and I just have 2 like fun things to end with.
okay.
So this is a big question. What are your top 3 horror films of all time, in your opinion? What do you think
Oh,
are the best?
okay. That's actually not that hard. That would
Okay.
be Jaws, The Exorcist, and The Shining.
Oh, that's quite I kind of expected you to say The Shining. I
I
wouldn't be
know
surprised if you didn't.
yeah, I know there's stock answers. I do. I understand
Mm.
their stock answers.
No, but they're great films.
But I can't pretend that that's not the way I feel.
No. Have you read The Shining?
I haven't.
I'm reading
I
it
haven't.
right now for the first time.
I saw in the late 90s there was a TV movie version that was supposedly extremely faithful to the book.
Mhm.
So I saw that. But I still prefer Kubrick's vision.
I think that's what's so interesting because I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and up until I started reading The Shining, I was like, I can't believe he doesn't like that film because it's just absolutely amazing. And then I started reading the book. I am 300 pages into this book, and he's only just starting to be like that character. So I can now
Okay.
see why he was like, this is not what I portrayed this man to be. So I do respect that now that I'm reading the book. And these are just 2 fun questions to end on. This one's going to shock you when I tell you mine. That's why I think it's funny.
Okay.
So, is there a horror film that you have not watched that would shock people? Like a very famous horror film? Is there a film that you have not seen yet that people would be surprised by.
Okay, you know what? I don't know how famous this is,
Mhm.
but I just recently, for the first time, sat down and watched Cannibal Holocaust.
Interesting. I've never watched it only because I heard that there was real like animal things in it and I was a bit unsure about that. But I've heard it's incredible.
It was extremely unsettling and
Mm,
disturbing, but not in a good way, not in like
right.
oh, that was such a creative horror thing.
Mm,
Yeah, I didn't know about the animal stuff when I watched it.
yeah.
Um, it it is I'll tell you, well, let me put it this way. I'm glad I saw it, so I educated myself, but I
Mm,
would never want to watch it again.
fair enough. It's one of those ones.
But as far as I'm just trying to think if there's something famous out there horror-wise that I haven't.
Skinamarink.
I mean, Skinamarink was I was gonna say that, but how famous is Skinamarink yet?
Yeah.
You know, it's still a little too new.
So I'm gonna make your jaw drop twice right now. Okay.
Okay.
I've never seen Poltergeist. I've never watched it. I don't know why. I don't have a reason. It's one of those films that I've just never ever got around to watching. And it's not that I don't want to watch it, I just have never in my life watched it.
I
I
don't even know how that's possible.
The next one's worse.
Okay, I'll brace myself. All right.
It's not a horror film. I just want to see your reaction to it because
Oh,
I
okay.
feel like you're a fan of this movie.
Probably.
Okay. I've never seen Rocky. It's painful, isn't it?
Well,
I have never watched it. It's one
you
of those
know,
films that I've never seen.
it's rare in life when I'm actually embarrassed for someone, but I think you just hit it.
It's one of
Um,
those films up until about 10 years ago, I hadn't seen Alien, and then obviously I did watch it, and it's
okay,
brilliant.
okay.
But with horror, it's like Poltergeist is one of those films. Like I've seen all the ones like the old Hitchcock films and even like when I was a kid, like my mom made me watch like The Birds. I'm still scared of that to this day. Like all these ones I've seen like the
I
big
love the
Shining ones.
birds.
It's so scary.
Love the
That's
birds.
just so scary.
But you know what? You just stumbled upon it.
Hmm.
I've never seen Alien.
Oh my God, there you go. That's shocking.
Yep, I saw
Mm.
Aliens, but I'd
Okay.
never seen Alien.
You should watch Alien. It's brilliant. It's
Okay,
brilliant. Yeah.
okay.
That's quite shocking. I was surprised that you haven't seen Alien.
But Poltergeist, there was a lot of influence from Poltergeist on Mr. Sandman, and I think when you do get
Ah,
around to it, you'll see some
I
of that.
promise
So
you I will watch it. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the best phrase I can come up with as far as Poltergeist and Jaws 2, treat yourself.
Just sit down one
Treat
evening.
yourself. Treat yourself. You're gonna be so happy when you do.
I will. I'll have it as like a double bill or just get like a takeaway, like sit down and
Oh
just
my
watch
goodness.
Poltergeist and Jaws too. Right, I'll do the last one before you're like, right, we're ending the call right here, right now.
Well,
It
the
don't
Rocky
even
the
want to
Ro
speak to her anymore.
the Rocky thing, like, stabbed me in the heart. That hurt.
I wasn't even gonna tell you. I was like, no, I have to because I have to see your reaction.
That stung. That really stung. Oh,
It's one of those ones, and that's why it's such a good question because there's always one that really shocks people. So the last question that is just for you as a director is if you could direct any actor, dead or alive, who would it be? It can be horror, but it doesn't have to be.
I'm gonna you know what? I would love to because one is somewhat obvious, but I would like to do a shout out to one that I think does not get enough credit. The obvious one is Gary Oldman.
Oh, amazing.
I've never seen someone my gauge for an actor, my respect for an actor always is based on the fact that they can change roles and make you believe every single role. And you're like, how does this person go from that character to that character? And I completely believe both. He is unbelievable.
He's awesome. I love
I don't
him.
know how he does it. I
Hmm.
really don't. So I'm absolutely blown away by Gary Oldman, and I'd be floored if I got to work with him.
And it was the other one that you were going to
The
say.
other one, it's so funny. She does not get the credit she deserves. That would be Eva Green.
Oh, I love Eva Green. She's great.
She is so underrated and so
Hmm.
phenomenal. And I'll tell you, I liked her up until a certain point, and then she did that limited series on Showtime, Penny Dreadful.
Loved that.
And I went from liking her to
Mhm.
being madly in love with her.
I
Like,
love that show.
I
No
was
one talks about that show. That was
I
a
was
great
like,
show.
oh my God, she's
Hmm.
incredible. I'm like,
Mhm.
I can't believe how good of an actress she
Yeah,
is.
she is. She's really
I'm
good.
like, oh my God, she
Mm.
is unbelievable. And ever since then, I've been in love with her as an actress and just felt
Mhm.
that she is phenomenal. And oh my God, I would love to see
Yes.
her stuff.
I do love her. The Dreamers is one of my favorite films of all time that she was in. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
What's it
but
called? The
The
Dreamers?
Dreamers. Yeah, it's like a kind of art house, like French sort of. But like it's excellent. You should watch it. That's all my questions. Great answers. I hope you've not been offended by anything I've said apart from the Rocky situation.
No, not offended at
You're like
all.
not offended in this. You're like, do you know what? Let's just not put this on.
But if you don't mind, I have a two-part question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Mhm.
So, from the challenge and Mr. Sandman,
Mhm.
what are your favorite scenes of each film and why?
Okay, so the challenge one, I really liked the part, and I can say I don't want to spoil it, but it's like there was one scene that I thought was really, really well done,
Okay.
where one of the girls is looking in one of the rooms, and the
Okay.
camera cuts, and then she looks in the room, and when she comes back, there's someone standing, and I was like, oh my God, like I did. What I loved about that is there was no sound at all.
Okay.
It was just nothing there, and it reminded me of in at The Strangers where you saw the people in the background, but there was nothing, and you were like, "Whoa, there's someone standing there," and it really messes with your head a little bit. That was my favorite scene from that.
Okay.
I really liked that.
Now I have a quick follow-up there because it's
Mhm.
funny because there's an alternate take of that where instead of
Ah.
standing,
Mhm.
she walks by.
Ah, okay. That would have been interesting to see.
Yeah.
I think maybe the standing is good because it would if I think if she was walking by, you would have saw it really obviously. But I think because she was standing, it took me a minute to be like, oh my God, someone is standing
Okay.
there. And it
Okay.
just kind of took me off guard a little bit.
And that's yeah, that reasoning is pretty much why we did go with the standing.
Mhm. That was
Okay.
that was definitely my favorite from that. And
Okay.
from the Sandman, I actually can I cheat? Can I have two?
Yes.
Yeah. I was gonna say, can I phrase more than once? Because I have two
Sure.
favorite scenes. My first favorite one, the one that really got to me, was I don't want to spoil it. The whole jacket thing being on the ground.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my, and like when that happened, I think my soul left me. Like I was genuinely really shocked. And I just kind of was on my laptop, as I said. I just looked up and was like, oh my God, like, it made me feel so uncomfortable in the best way possible. It was very good.
So what
And
what
yeah,
was it about that scene that made just the general discomfort
I
or
think it was the fact that it does happen in real life. You do look at things in your room and you question what it is. Like you'll maybe see something on a chair in the corner and you'll look at it and you'll think, is that someone there? Is that someone
okay.
living? And it was the
Okay.
idea that this thing was there and what actually happened.
Got
Yeah,
it.
that was my favorite. And then I meant to say this to her earlier, your daughter, but the ending was just so good. Like the whole speaking and the mirror thing.
Oh, the mirror
I mean,
sequence?
yeah, I just don't
Oh,
want to give spoilers, so I don't want to say
I
too
got
much.
you.
But
I got
yeah, I really liked that part. I thought that was really, really good. It creeps me out. It was like, oh, like it was just really good. So those are my two favorite parts.
Okay. Okay. What was it about the mirror sequence that hit you?
I think
The
it was the fact that she was like speaking back to herself, and it was just creepy because you were like, "Is that actually her? Is it not?" And her acting was so good that I was like, "Oh my God, this girl is really creeping me out." She's so good. Like, she really, really was great. Well, thank you so much for
Oh,
today. This has been lovely. Just if you can tell everybody where they can find your movies and where they can follow you online.
I'm pretty much on every major social as Acres Films, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and on the very little known Slasher app. It's a social media site for horror fans.
I will
So
have a look.
yep. So I'm under there, Acres Films. And as far as the movies themselves, Mr. Sandman is not on my YouTube channel. It's on the distributor's YouTube channel, but it is out there. If you just type in Mr. Sandman horror movie, the poster should come right up. And hashtag the challenge is on my my YouTube page, Acres Films. And then Mr. Sandman is on Tubi, and the Tubi version and the Amazon Prime version both have interview with the cast and crew after the credits. So
Yes.
I don't want to torture people. Only if you feel like staying after the credits, you can get some extra inside information. But if you don't, you just watch the movie. That's cool too.
Thank you so much. So I'm Ashley B. Red. If you want to find me, I am on TikTok under Ashley B. Red. You can also find my music. I do horror-related music. That's on Spotify, Apple, on Instagram, Ashley B. Red Music Official. So thank you very much, Matt, and see you guys next time.
Thank you.